Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And on behalf of the Ladies Study Group in Kolkata, I would like to warmly welcome each and every one of you to our very exciting session today. Every success story that we know of is always so unique, and there is just so much that we can learn from with each one. And today, for my final session with you as president of this organization, with a membership of over 500 such empowered women, I felt it would be the most fitting choice to have three women business leaders, each of whom is a superwoman and is at the very top of her game, to share their individual journeys and learnings with us and provide us with food for thought on what perhaps we could adapt into our own individual lives and workspaces. I would now like to welcome Priya Paul to join me on screen.
Hi. Hi,
Hi,
Vidya. Nice to
Priya.
be here.
Hi, welcome to Ladies Study Group.
Thank
I
you.
want to add that Priya Paul is a Padma Shri recipient and is the dynamic powerhouse behind India's leading collection of contemporary luxury boutique hotels, the APJ Surendra Park, which today has a national footprint of 22 properties across three brands: the Park Collection, and Zone by the Park. And of course, the icing on their cake, literally speaking, is their legendary pastry shop Flurries, a brand which has over 50 outlets all over Kolkata and is definitely the favored grand dame of our city's confectionery world. Priya also steers her team with her vision of leadership through differentiation, and this, in fact, has become a textbook case at many business schools today. Can we please have Anita Dongre join us on screen? Hi, Anita.
Hi, Dia.
Wel-
Thank you for having me
Welcome,
over here.
welcome to Ladies Study Group.
Thank
And I do
you.
want to add, Anita is a trailblazer, a vegan, and an animal lover, and has been at the forefront of Indian fashion for over 20 years, having created one of the most successful fashion houses in India, which today employs over 2,500 people directly and provides employment opportunities to thousands more. A connoisseur of craftsmanship, Anita Dongre's designs showcase Indian aesthetics for the global woman of today, keeping comfort at its core. Internationally, her designs have been worn and appreciated by noteworthy women such as Kate Middleton, Hillary Clinton, Queen Matilda of Belgium, Sophie Trudeau, Beyonce, and of course our very own Priyanka Chopra, to name a few. Can we please request Ms. Neena Lekhi to join us on screen?
Hi. Hi,
Hi,
Dia.
Neena. Hi. Welcome to Ladies Study Group, Neena. So I want to
Thank you.
add that yes, Nina's spectacular journey is a perfect example of how determination and a goal oriented approach are the key to building an empire. Nina is the managing director and the chief design curator of the household vegan brand Baggett, which delivers quality bags and accessories made out of cruelty free material. Her love for colors is one of the fundamentals of Baggett, and the brand today enjoys an international identity and is revered amongst regular users and hardcore fashionistas alike. Nina has also documented her entrepreneurial journey in her best selling biography titled Bag It All, where she says her incredible transformation from the art of failing to doing business with love. So, members, as you can see, the energy on screen today is just so powerful and so strong. And I'm sure that we can all feel that even through our screens today. So, my first question is going to be to ask each one of you to share your individual stories as each one is so different, so unique, and just so special. So I'm going to begin with you, Priya, and do tell us about how you started your career as a marketing manager at the Park, New Delhi. I think you were just 22 years old. You took over the reins at 24 with three hotels in your charge, and today, with your astute direction, you have a 400% growth, 22 hotels, and growing. So tell us about this journey.
Um, Thanks, Dia. Thank you. It's lovely to be here with everyone today. And wish we could have done this in Calcutta. As
True.
some of you may know, I did grow up in Calcutta, and that was my home, and and made me who I am. Not just the schools I went to, but the friends and the institutions, and just growing up in that vibe of Calcutta in the 60s and 70s. So I was had a kind of a different journey. I always knew as a young kid that I wanted to join the family business and work in business. So that's something that I decided when I was about 10 years old. My parents, Surinder and Shireen Paul, encouraged me every step of the way, and made sure that I was completely empowered and encouraged and helped in that journey. I'm at that stage. I don't think I knew whether I was going to be in hospitality or in become an artist or become well, not artist, but do something more creative, and
Yes.
or what type of business I would do. So they kind of made sure I was educated right, made sure um, I believed in myself and had the confidence in what my abilities are. When I joined business, I my father had just opened a hotel in New Delhi, the Park New Delhi, and
Mhm.
he said, this is it. Now you should come and start working with me and being with me. And I started this kind of I guess, a training under him, and I was given the title of a marketing manager, and that was in 1988. And I started working in this one hotel. And unfortunately, my father passed away shortly thereafter in 1990. And suddenly I was catapulted from really looking after this one hotel to looking after three. And um, those first 2 years were really like a training under him, and that was, I think, very valuable. Towards the end of those 2 years, I was almost like the general manager of that property, but working under my father. But suddenly, with his death, I was looking after three hotels, and it was a completely different kind of ball game. Two of the hotels were older; they had their own sets of problems, and you had one that was new. So I really looked at these three hotels, which I was, kind of entrusted to manage, and started looking at how I could make some sense of it. Before he died, my father had a program of renovating some of those hotels in Calcutta and Vishakhapatnam, and I basically looked at the program, and I looked at what what could be, and how could we be as three small hotels, how could we be distinctive, how could we be interesting. I was 23, 24 at that time, and I also felt that I and had a kind of a more creative bend. So I said, why shouldn't I make the hotels more interesting and distinctive? And I wanted to bring contemporary Indian um, culture into the space. And by culture, I meant everything from art and dance and music, to the interiors and to the way the spaces looked and behaved. And I started doing this at the Calcutta Hotel, then Vishakhapatnam, then New Delhi, and transformed these hotels to kind of happening, vibrant spaces in each of the cities. And in the mid 90s, hotels were very different to what they became 2000, 2005 onwards, and they were quite dull and boring and very, very formal. And we tried to make hotels that were had a nice
Mm.
bar, had music, had dancing, had fun, restaurants to go out to, and with a lot of the international, much more international food, I mean, like, when we opened a coffee shop in Calcutta in 1993, you couldn't get coffee, like proper coffee, anywhere
Okay.
pretty much in India. We had to import, like, we decided that we're going to have, like, I don't know, 15 or 20 different types of coffees, and we had to import all the coffees from Jamaican coffee to XYZ. And it was a talking point at that stage in 1993. Um, and really getting that, kind of coffee experience into a coffee shop. Why was it called a coffee shop? Anyway, so there were quite, quirky things like that. There was the way that we used actually design and contemporary culture to differentiate the hotels, and that's what we kind of formulated in 90, 93, 94. We articulated a vision of leadership through differentiation and decided that this would be the niche of boutique hotels that we would create, run, and identify ourselves. So that's what the park really became. We grew with those three hotels, and whether it was uniforms or the scripting of the customer interaction or the different many touch points that you have in a with customers, we looked at each one of them and created them in new, exciting ways. With that strength of transforming these three hotels, we added hotels in Bangalore and Chennai, and then started moving into kind of an expansion of the brand. And I am, of course, now skipping many, many years. We can come back to them in the question answer, and develop this brand architecture of three types of hotels. One is the park hotels, which are the big city center hotels, all very differentiated. Then we have something called the Park Collection, which are 20 to 40 room boutique properties in places of unique architectural uh, interest, or old palaces, and we have about four of those right now. And we have Zone by the Park, which is a contemporary brand in the four-star design conscious brand. So that's kind of encapsulating some many 30 years in as many as few minutes. I don't even know the time frame we are at. And but it's been fun. And I think the most important thing for me is that for me, it's like there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of excitement, and whether I'm looking at anything from uniforms to the menus to the food, I think that's what makes the properties and the company exciting and
Absolutely.
differentiated.
Yes.
So
Definitely
yeah,
differentiated, yes. Very much one of the top
thanks.
names, I think. So coming to you, Anita, I'd like to ask you, I know that you were an entrepreneur before being an entrepreneur was even in fashion. And I know that you began with two small sewing machines in a balcony in your mother's home when you were just 22 years old. And today you're the reigning queen of the fashion industry. And I've often heard you said in your interviews that you have six children today. You have your handsome son Yash and your five divisions of work. So, how does this journey happen? Do tell us about it.
Dia, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me well, okay, because your voice was cracking when you were asking me the question,
Okay. So,
strangely.
I
I
was
don't know why.
basically asking you, Anita, about, I know that you say you have six children. So, we know, of course, about Yash, but your five divisions, we want to hear about that.
Yeah. So, Dia, unlike Priya, who was encouraged by her parents, to stand on her own two feet and to be an independent woman, I came from a family where we were more traditional, and I was kind of the rebel child. But anyways, I think, like you just said, I started in a really small way with two sewing machines in my balcony. My growth was really, really literally from two sewing machines to a garage to currently where we are, which is a 90,000 design headquarters, environmentally friendly. So I mean, even when I studied in design school, I always had this vision. It's not that I did not think this large. Even when I went to design school, I used to always think to myself that I am going to have this really large fashion house, and this is what I'm going to do. So my vision was always very large. In fact, we have a joke, and I was just discussing this with my mom actually just yesterday, and she teased me and she said, I came from a fairly middle class family. My father moved in partition with nothing.
Okay.
in 1947. So he came up the hard way. And she used to always say that you used to always talk so big, Dad, I'm going to do this, Dad, I'm going to do that. And my father used to always tease me, you're not a Tata, you're not a Birla, you cannot achieve all this. And that was that was something I constantly heard from him. But when a lot of people ask me today that did you ever think that this is where you will be, I'm grateful for where I am, and I'm grateful for the ability today to have this large fashion house. But I always dreamt about it, Dia, to be honest. I always dreamt
Lovely.
about. I never wanted to run a small business. I never wanted to just have like what was very fashionable in those times to say boutique hai unka, because women designers were just resigned to ek chota sa boutique which
Correct.
she
Correct.
ran.
Yes.
She's just fulfilling her creative desires. She was not supposed to be this businesswoman or not supposed to run a business empire. And I used to find that very, very limiting to my abilities to be thought of just as a boutique designer. And I used to kind of resent that and hate that when they used to speak like that, because I was never taken seriously, but I always had this vision. And today, well, it is a large fashion house, and it's professionally managed. I have a CEO today. I play the role of creative head, though I've played every role in my company. I mean, there's nothing I haven't done, and there's nothing that I actually don't even do today. I'm very hands-on. I pretty much even today work almost 10 to 12 hours a day, even in lockdown. There's always something
Okay.
to do. There's always
Something to
something
do.
to improve. I used the lockdown to do a lot of what I couldn't do when the business is really running. That pause also helped and kept me busy,
Absolutely.
and stayed really busy. Yeah, and I still have a long way to go. I mean, for me, the journey is um, is not over, and I would love to take Indian fashion to more countries abroad. We have a store in New York, which I'm very, very proud of, and it was a bold decision I made, and I almost kind of regretted that decision when New York went into lockdown. And but it's great. The store's recovered. It's back to making profits again. I'm already thinking of where next should the next store be. So
Amazing.
I'm really driven and passionate, and want to do so much more.
Amazing. Amazing. Anita, that's so inspiring. The way that you've put the concept of being limitless. And I think that is something all of us need to remember as women, that we are limitless if we have a great vision. And talking about visions and being limitless, I'm going to come to my next speaker today, who I think defines this very clearly. So, Nina, I'm going to ask you my question now, and that is, I know that you were head girl of your school, and then you moved to failing in your first year at Sophia College. You didn't give up. You converted that dejection and failure into a sense of purpose, took a loan of 7,000 rupees from your mom, and now run a over 100 crore company today with a brand name called Baggett, named after your favorite song by Michael Jackson. So tell me, how has this journey been?
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah,
Am I
very
audible?
well.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been absolutely. Didn't ever think that I would be here, running such a big company. I started actually in school. I was very good in school till the sixth standard, and then it was a different school, and I was very very busy partying, enjoying myself after the eighth grade. And for me, college was like what you see in movies. So it was like you don't need to be in college. You're in college now. That's what my mindset was when I went to Sapphires, and I was never in the classroom. And I failed that year in college, and that was the biggest kick that God gave me in my ass. Itna jor ka lag gaya na mere ko. Because I had a pretty good self-esteem about myself. I never looked at myself, even though I was always a backbencher. I never thought I would be the failing kind. Failing was duffers. And when I failed, I was like, and they told me, no, you come back after this year and you give your exam again. And I was like, what the hell do I do with myself the entire year? Because then, no, we have only so many seats in Sapphires. There are only 30, 40 girls in one class. I'm like, oh God, what do I do? Anyway, so I started my business in that particular year, just starting from home, called the lift man, called somebody from the neighborhood slums. Luckily, my mother, how all moms are, they teach you cooking class, they teach you stitching class. So only thing I knew was how to cut a petticoat. So it was pretty similar to cutting a handbag. And I started hands-on doing it that myself. And the next year, I got a Maharashtra State Award in the same Sapphire College. So it is like, it just says that if you put your mind to it, you can reach anywhere, absolutely. And then on, I mean, I went from that failure, and I would like to tell you all also how Baggett, the name, came up. So me and a friend of mine had started the business that year, and we used to go swimming every day, and it was only in the changing room that we were like, Michael Jackson was the singer at that time, and it was beat it, and it was Baggett. That's how that journey started. And it's been a fabulous journey because never knew that it would go from exhibitions to mom and pop stores to the first shopper stop that came up, and then having my dream of having, so I did this business program which my husband conducts. He's a business coach, and I put down my vision where I said, I don't want to be a karkhanedar, but I want to have a store. I want to be a brand. And I remember the first store we did in Atria, we knew that we're not going to do well because that was the only thing I could do. I was a nuclear family. It was the only mall that was close to my house. I had a 1-year-old baby. I said, just let's do it. You just sometimes jump into things even though logic doesn't say yes. And I think the first store did as bad as what we anticipated and envisioned, you could say. But somehow the next store and the third store made it all break even, which is exactly how you think that I'm going to become a brand and I'm going to be there, and that's exactly what we created together. And I guess from then on it's been a great journey. See, there was one more thing that I in my path I had a lot of spiritual linkage with my husband and our Guruji, and there is where he was always coming from, what are you doing, what you're doing for, are you doing it to have money, are you doing it for everyone's well-being? So for me, my mission has always been for India, and to contribute in the economic growth of our country, and to be a brand internationally where all the kind of currencies that we all go and spend, to be a little percentage in getting that back for India.
Lovely. Lovely. More power to you, Nina, and I'm sure that dream's going to come true too.
Yes.
So I want to ask you all, we are all struggling today with this ongoing crisis to embrace the new normal. I want to understand, how has this pandemic panned out for each one of you with respect to the business front? Because, we all have plans A, B, maybe even up to Z, but all those will obviously not be in play anymore with this new normal. So Anita, can I start with you? Can you tell me 2 things that your organization has been doing to combat the current situation that we are in?
I think the most important is we've been staying in constant touch with all, the entire team very regularly. We're speaking with them, boosting their morale, staying in touch with all our artisans, staying in touch with everyone involved with the company, and trying to help in whatever way we can, whether it's in education about COVID, whether it is in, helping them with medical help. We're just staying in touch and communicating with all of them, and they know that we're just a phone call away. I think that's the most important thing we've done, right down from my CEO to all the department heads. Everyone's been told to just stay in touch. So especially the lockdowns have been very, very, mentally disturbing to a lot. A lot of the families have experienced a lot of hardship. So just being there to help, Priya, more than anything else. And I think that's all of us can do.
And on the business front, how have you realigned your targets, etc.? I said on the business front, what about realigning your targets? You must have had to reset all those goals too.
We are resetting our targets every day, Dia, every week.
I'm sure.
Fashion
yes.
Is such a difficult industry where you plan your next few months, and you don't know with lockdowns which store will open when, how do you plan your merchandise. So we literally do meetings every day, replan, reschedule. So it's really, really taught us to be extremely flexible, very nimble, and just our figures change every day because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
I'm sure.
So though we do make long-term plans in fashion, you've got to start thinking about your textiles 1 year ahead. You start developing fabrics 1.5 years before. these are very, very strange times. So you just have to stay very, very flexible. Sometimes, like, at least in the first lockdown, rural India was working and the artisans needed work. How do we manage to get work across to them? So it's literally every day we brainstorm over one issue or the other. So I think it's just getting together as a team and saying, today this is
True.
the problem in front of us. Let's see what we can do about this, and let's see how we can handle this. So every day
And
brings in every day
I
brings in
want
a
to
new
add, Anita,
challenge.
I believe you don't ever sit in a cabin. You don't have your own office, and your office is always the shop
No.
floor.
So when I moved into this new design headquarters, my architect and me were very excited, and he gave me the largest cabin in the company, saying you deserve it. You're the founder member, and you should have this. And I sat in the cabin for about 6 months, and then I just felt so isolated there, and I didn't want the cabin. So I left the cabin, converted it into a meeting room, and I just started sitting outside with the whole team on a desk,
Amazing.
just like everybody else, the American style. And I really like that. And I hardly really sit
Amazing.
on a table. My job requires me to move around a lot. When you work in a design headquarters, you don't really sit on your table for very long. It's a job that
True.
requires you to move
True.
from department to department. I'll spend an hour in the fabric room, then I'll spend an hour with the karigars, then with the tailors, then I'll come to the design room, then to our showrooms. So honestly, I'm hands-on and I prefer it like that. I love that. I
Fantastic.
love walking around the whole design space and being part of every department and sitting with them rather than they coming to my desk or
True.
my
True.
cabin.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
Priya,
hands-on
coming
style.
to
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think that's the best way to be.
Keeps
So
you
Priya,
fit
coming to
also,
you.
Priya. You on your
Yes.
feet all day.
True. True. Yes. We can all do with that, especially in this current situation, I think.
Yeah, I'm missing that. I'm missing walking around the
Yes.
design headquarters
True.
because now I'm
True.
stuck in
Yes.
the house and I'm so missing my
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. So, Priya, coming to you, I know that when the first lockdown happened and you were in crisis mode, you immediately set up 4 task forces and you had the theme of reimagine, reset, and restart. So, can you tell us a little more about what you did and what you are doing now currently too?
So I think I'm very proud that my team, led by the managing director and Vijay Devan and the whole team, actually mobilized and set themselves to really look at the business with fresh eyes. I think one of the
Mhm.
facts that the fact that this time, as even as Anita was saying, sometimes when you have a little more time and you have this frenetic, busy hotel kind of space where things are happening 24 by 7, 365 days a year. And our hotels are particularly busy because of events and food and
True.
beverage
Yes.
things that we host. So suddenly from, this frenetic pace, you're down to like zero occupancy practically. And with, revenue streams that you have to examine. We didn't, so the task force happened, and the task force were really looking at everything from the safety and security issues, and developed a program called Shield, which is across all the hotels and spaces. They looked at cost saving management, cost saving, and suddenly you have zero activity, so you can examine all the costs and how they come up. So I think that was a very good and important exercise, and we will kind of the benefits have already kicked in and will move forward. But they also looked at how we could restart the business and what this new way of business would be. And of course, things have been changing and being fluid. So how do you, at that time when you were about a year ago in April, you thought that you would open in June, but there were so many things, openings, closings, and you're constantly restarting the businesses. We are lucky in a way, in a sense that we didn't shut our hotels completely. So we had from
Okay.
May or June last year, we picked up occupancy to the point that about 5 of our hotels were doing almost 85% occupancy in the third quarter of last year. We closed the year with 62% occupancy, and we were posted a profit. So that was very important, and for me, because I'm
Wow.
proud of the team for the way they were resilient, they were agile, they responded to the situation. When they saw that people couldn't come to the hotels, they started taking things out to the customer, which was, of course, food and bartenders, or hosting music events, and, kind of streaming music. So because people couldn't come to our clubs and bars, they looked at ways of pushing them out to your home. So I think,
Wow.
that was very important. I think the second wave that we've just gone through, and particularly in North India, has been far more um, uh, difficult as a time. This has been, a period of where there's, people are kind of hurt and vulnerable and going through a lot. And I think once the reopening starts, probably from July, August onwards, we will see consumption and demand pick up. But I think the recovery is going to take a little more time this year.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, there's some tough times ahead.
Yes. Amina, coming to you, I know that you're a brand that your theme is you're a brand who really cares. And I know you're very involved with all your people and you do a lot of meditation exercises with the people that you work with too. So how are you dealing with this pandemic in the business front and on a personal front? Two important things you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I guess being nimble, like how Anita said, and even Priya said about, just finding your way and keep doing things. I guess a lot of R&D and things that you would not normally have the time for doing, whether it's designing softwares, whether it's new ranges, branching out more into, so that when it grows, comes back to normalcy, you have a few more lines in the offering that we have. And I guess just putting off the things that you don't really need, all the extra frills and fancies that you can't afford in today's world, because you just need to sustain the team that you have so their livelihoods go on. I think that is where it all comes to. And I think just like how she said, you're just making a business plan and you're just going like, you don't know whether you're coming or going with wave one, with wave two. But I guess if you just take it all in, as a play of life, and you just flow with it. And I think all of us love what we do, which is why we are entrepreneurs. And I think women are more stronger, and we can handle a lot more. And I think if you just look at it in that light, that okay, it's a play, and then it's great fun, because you're handling a new situation. There's no boring day. Every day is a crazy day, handling so many things.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So
There's no
I wanted
choice,
to understand you. Yes, you're right. There is no choice. And you did speak about sustainability. And I wanted to ask Anita, sustainability is very much a part of our agenda today. So for you, what does sustainability mean, both from the brand perspective, and I know personally also you speak very strongly about sustainable living. So can you talk a little bit about sustainability to us?
Dia, I think sustainability for me is using resources as intelligently as possible, because we do not have limitless resources. For me, sustainability also involves social sustainability, making sure that the communities around you are managed sustainably. That's at work, and I have a long way to go. It's just that every single day, whatever decisions I take, I try to make sure um, that we are using our intelligence to make sure that whatever processes we use in designing, manufacturing. In fact, even in the lockdown, I think there's a lot of progress we did on uh, with my sustainability head. There's a lot of work we've put in. We had the time to do that. On a personal level, also, I think it comes down to the same. For me, it's waste management in the house. I think it's at this time I really realized that what kind of waste each one of us creates, right from all those parcels we order in e-com to there's just so much material objects we surround ourselves with. And I think I really used the last 1.5 years to declutter my personal life down to a bare minimum, where I still want to use less than what I was using earlier. And I really only want to use what I really need to use. And what am I using? How am I disposing it of? There was so much of soul searching that went on at a personal level. Um, and again, even at work, we are always brainstorming in how can we do this better. So while we were in lockdown, we improved on all our packaging. We are going to be 100% all our packaging is going to be 100% sustainable within a few weeks from now. Right on from the tape we use, cartons we use, paper we use, everything is recycled. We have a recycled plastic program that we've begun. So all the plastic bags that go to all our stores, all the factories are taken back, recycled. Our fabric waste is recycled. Fabrics that the kind of manufacturers and mills we work with, we are diving deep into how can we substitute X for Y because Y is better and Y is better than X, then maybe Z is better than Y. So it's a constant lot of research and and literally looking at everything. I've become I was always anal about it, but I think in the last 1 year, it's 1.5 year, it's really dived deep into this. So it's a process. I'm not 100% there, but I think every step that I take every day is an improvement, is the way I look at it and how we
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
We already
I
work
think
from
we
an
all
eco-friendly headquarters, so
true.
the desire to be sustainable was obviously always there because we set up this design
Always.
headquarters years ago. We moved in there about 5-6 years ago. But how else can we become sustainable in every process of ours? That's an ongoing process, Dia.
True, true. And I think we all need to ask ourselves this question about and educate ourselves more about how we can each contribute in our own personal spaces. Priya, coming to you, what are you doing in your line of work to be more sustainable?
Well, I think quite a few things, but I think for hospitality and hotels, energy costs are one of the largest
Mm-hmm.
components of our expenditure. So that's something that hotels are constantly looking at, and how do you, whether you use solar or whether you're using, how do you treat water, how do you preserve water, how do you recycle, and that's always in the forefront. So one of our hotels in 2010, one of the new hotels that we did in Hyderabad, we went into for certification as a LEED. LEED is environmentally conscious way of building hotels and looking at all your engineering and the resources that you're using, not just during construction but also post construction. So that's something that was quite an education when we did it in, we started the process in 2007 or 8. And I think subsequently what we've been trying to do is implement those policies and those, kind of those, let's say, guiding principles for, of course, the new buildings that we're doing. And then there's a US lead council, and there's, of course, an Indian lead council, and we use a combination of both. And then the more important question is, how do you retrofit older hotels and put these practices in there? So energy saving practices, eco or recyclable materials, etc. So that's one part of the question. The other thing that I'm actually quite interested in, and a lot of our chefs are now also championing, is this whole kind of farm to fork and sustainability of our food resources, and where are they coming from, whether it's a chicken or it's a lettuce leaf or etc. So one of our restaurants in Delhi became the first, I would say, farm to fork restaurant in India that does Indian food. So again, everything was, sustained, sourced, and so where you're getting it. And I think before the COVID times when it was open, it was up to about 80% completely sustained, organic, and when we used to have a farmers market in the hotel every Sunday, that kind of, was also more like a community outreach where people came and that anything from 6 to 12 farmers and direct producers selling their products. Our hotel in Chennai also does the same in some of the other hotels. So, going forward, I think that's the big question that people are going to keep on asking: where is your food coming from? How are you consuming? What are you consuming? Whether it's fashion or whether it's food,
Absolutely.
and it's around you. And I agree with Anita. I think the big question is, how much you really need to consume, or even if you're consuming, you do something, you buy one thing that will. One garment that might last you much more than doing more of a fast fashion kind of thing. So there
True.
are lots of
True.
questions, and I think the past year and a half has made everybody look at their consumption and see where they want to be in that spectrum. And I think decisions are still being made, and it's still evolving. And it's do you need to buy so much, and do you need to consume so much, and or if you are consuming, are you more mindful about what you're doing? So I think that's so some of your personal journey comes here, and so for us, obviously, hotels are also consume resources, generate a lot of waste, and those are things that we are more mindful, and our teams are managing, whether it's food waste, and that's also a huge conversation that's happening in the hospitality world across the world.
True. So Nina,
Yeah.
can you tell us? Can you hear me? You're on mute, Nina.
Okay. I thought you were muting. Okay. You can hear me?
No, we are not. Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the most important things is going to a 0% wastage factory, utilizing all our stuff, doing plant-based, handbags, which you get on these beach resorts, but making them much, much more functional, where you could use carry it with a laptop. It has all the comforts that we are used to. Doing all of these, I think smaller things or mid-sized things is one thing that we've already, gone towards. I think because Mother Earth is shouting out loud and clear to us, guys, wake up! What are you all doing? And I think we've never done anything, and in India, all the more so. Like no one is bothered where the garbage goes, what happens. But I think it's all changing, and so are companies, and so are we. Another thing that we also do is we make sure that all the materials that we use for handbags, especially, are recyclable. But in our industry of handbags, the worst part is that if you go to a large format store, if you see 20 brands or 40 brands, almost all of them are imported from China. And the worst part is that all of those are PUs which are not at all recyclable. That means that PU bag can go into Mother Earth and be there for 100 years. So we make sure that every material that we use is recyclable. Now, where is the recycling ecosystem in India? So we're hoping that the rag pickers and penetrating more into that area where we can also look at change that can happen. But educating people is most important. But I think the most important thing here is giving work to Indian people rather than importing stuff from other countries where हमारे यहाँ इतनी गरीबी है, हमारे यहाँ unemployment है, but it's very convenient to go to a foreign country and choose the styles that you want. It's a cakewalk, and I think that is where we really at Baggett feel that Mother India, it's not only Dharti Ma, but that's, I think, more sustainability for me in a larger picture is, we care for our Indians, and just like how Anita is doing, going down to the villages, giving work, to them. So we are also looking at all kinds of ways and means to teach people, karigars, all that.
Okay. So one of the main or one of the big take homes of conversations like today is everyone has a chance to hear so much and learn from women like you. And so I'm going to ask you three today to tell me one thing that you think is responsible for your success, something that happened in your journey, and also something, I wouldn't use the word failure, but some incident that you learned from what not to do. Anita, can we start with you?
One thing that I've done for my success, you see, one reason.
What do you feel, one of the things that happened that has brought you the success that you had, something you did right, a tip, a success tip?
I think just every single day of my life going to work and giving it my 200%, like every single day.
Very true.
I think just being very, very consistent. I think consistency leads to success, and consistency also means you don't give up. I've had my fair share of failures. It's not that I haven't had them, but I think you've got to learn from your failures and say, I'm going to do this better next time. Every failure that I've had, I've looked at it and said, no, this is what I did. I analyze it, and then I want to go back and do it again better. It gives you, and I'm glad that life gives you a second chance to rectify your failures. So you shouldn't be afraid of failure. Failure is there to teach you that you can do this better.
Absolutely. What about you, Nina? What do you feel?
So I think one important thing, so obviously I told you all about my failure story, and that was one thing that happened that catapulted me into working harder. But I think like all of us have in businesses, we have the ups and downs. But I think journaling or creating a vision because it's very important, because there's obviously going to be fears, and all that you do is see those fears in your mind when you going to work, or when you're getting into a meeting. And I think journaling it the night before or in the morning and creating what you want, I think is really helped me, and it's a great tool to use if you would like to have that clarity to what you want.
Clarity of thought, yes. Priya, what about you?
I think what has helped me is also making mistakes, and I think making mistakes and learning and moving on from them, because I think that's really important. I think it's important to make mistakes and remain positive about what you're trying to do. I mean, and I think that, and keeping on, soldiering on, and as Anita said, I mean, half of it is actually that hard work and turning up and being there in the office even after a setback, and keeping yourself, not just yourself motivated, but your team motivated. I think that's really leads to success. Yeah, I think
And I also
that
think
was my take on it.
financial independence, right? That's very important. Like Anita, I heard you saying in one of the interviews I watched of yours that it is so important for women to be financially independent. And I think
Yeah.
it's not only
Yeah.
about, in your personal space, but even professionally, you can take more risks and, take on more challenges if you're financially independent. So if somebody wants to set up something in fashion, what is that one tip you'd like to give them today?
That fashion is all consuming and it's hard work. I mean, I think fashion is one of the most misunderstood industries where from the outside it looks super glamorous.
Yeah.
It's anything but glamorous. It's just a lot of hard work. So all the young girls who come to me and who want to achieve overnight success, and I always tell them success doesn't come overnight. Just enjoy the journey, go in there, love what you do, and don't think that don't come looking at that end result right in the beginning. Like work towards the success and give it your best, and only get into fashion if you're really passionate about it. I mean, that's something I would say to everybody. Just do what you're passionate about, and then success has to follow. So
Okay,
just
thank
the
you for
same thing,
that.
hard work.
Yeah,
It's
hard work.
exactly being
Yes.
consistent and giving it your 200% every day. It's what I did, and that's what I would tell anyone else getting into fashion to do the same.
So should they first start with an exhibition or straight away go into a store level?
I think
Or should they take it step
exhibitions
by
and,
step?
and
It's a
stores,
good route,
and
right?
I've said this before, but I'm going to say it to the viewers again today, that from one of your failures can also come your biggest successes. I
Sure.
started my first store because none of the stores would buy that collection for me. When I started my first
Amazing.
store in Crossroads, I was declined by every store in Bombay because when I showed them the collection, I was told it's too simple, ye nahi bikega, nahi bikega. And I knew it that it would sell, and I knew that that's what the woman in Bombay wanted, and that's exactly the rejection made me want to open my own store, and then the rest is history. Today the company has almost 200 stores. But that fire came out of that first rejection and the conviction that what I was doing was correct.
Very true.
So rejection sometimes can turn out to be really good,
Absolutely.
and a failure can become a success.
Yes. Priya, what
I
about you? If
think I
somebody wants to set up
no, I
a
think I
restaurant
think
or
you
a
have
hotel?
no, I think you have to be not afraid to chart your own path and have that confidence in your vision, which is it's different. I mean, for Nina, for Anita, myself, and maybe other players in the, you have
Yeah.
to.
Correct.
So if
Correct.
you believe in what you're doing and whatever it is, small, big, and you might have a long-term plan. You may just want to start and then to see where it goes. I think it's very important to have conviction in your passion, your vision, your belief, and then really work hard at it. And eventually, it's hard work, and nothing comes easy. And you have plenty of people who will help you. You'll have setbacks, but I
Yes.
think if you're in that whole journey of entrepreneurship, that's part of it. That's part
True.
of
And I
it.
think every woman's story is different. Everyone's got to find their
Yeah.
own
Absolutely.
path.
Absolutely.
Nobody
Yes.
can emulate somebody else's story. You can get inspired by someone else's
Right.
story, but then your journey is your journey, and understand and accept that and cherish that.
So, Nina, what would you say? And also, I wanted to ask you, Nina, would you say that, from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s, at every stage of your life, have your vision also changed according to, one matures with age? So I'm sure our visions also change accordingly. So what do you feel? What is your advice?
Yeah, thankfully, you stopped at 50s and didn't go on to 60s.
Yeah.
We all stop counting after a certain point.
It's how
I
old
guess
you're in the head, Dia.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just numbers.
so. I agree with what Anita and Priya are saying, absolutely. But I think one most important thing, I think what we should be also saying is that it's a lot of hard work and stuff. But when you love to do what you're doing,
Yeah, what
it
you
doesn't
do.
really,
Yeah.
matter. I mean, I think most of us work 7 days. We're working all the time, especially with WhatsApp, with your social media. You're all the time, in that realm. And I think as long as you pick up something that you love doing, it doesn't feel like hard work. It just
Yeah.
feels like must how. So it's not. I mean, that's one side. Obviously, you'll bang on, but that's the other side. That's why we are stuck on, and we are like, okay, another 40 years more, 50 years more to go, is one thought. And yeah, I guess in the beginning it was more when I was in my 20s to prove that okay, I'm not a failure, and then it was okay, I'm doing it as a hobby, as a passion. But now it's coming more, and I think that's always a mature age of an entrepreneur where you're coming from giving, and you want to come from contributing, whether it's to your team, to your country, to your people. That's it.
So how do you juggle the entrepreneurial cap and the creative side? Because I know, Priya, you have this huge creative interest in art and music. So how do you balance the two? And the number game. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business and numbers are very, very important too. So how do you balance the two?
So as I was saying, I mean, because I have these passions in the creative arts and things like that, that's what I wanted to bring into my business, and and that's what has become the kind of the identity and the characteristic of the business. And so I manage. I mean, I'm very interested in art, not not painting anymore, but of course, actually. In contemporary art and promoting contemporary art as well as some of the traditional art. So I make sure that's part of my life. I integrate it, and I enjoy exploring new things all the time. Um, so I'm lucky that I've been able to bring that into my work, and that's because it's my passion and becomes, I'm passionate about those three arts.
True, true. Okay. What about you, Anita? How do you balance the two roles?
I love just the creative side of my work, obviously, but I do make a conscious, disciplined effort to involve myself with the numbers, the operations,
Oh,
and I have
very
to
nice.
do that to enjoy those few hours when I do my creative. So that's the price I pay, but that's okay. I
Okay,
have to
No, no,
do
thank you.
that.
no,
Thank
no.
you.
But I didn't answer the second part of your question. And of course, it's not a question of balance. I'm lucky that also enables us to make a profit, right? So, I mean, when you have a very strong identity for a business, and when and certainly the hotels are known as places for culture and for art and dance and music, and we really use entertainment and nightlife and food and beverages as points of innovation. I think that actually builds the brand and establishes it and makes it financially strong too eventually. Our hotel brands are not just like normal places to sleep in. It's much more than that. So I think that
True.
contributes to the identity and the financial part of it. But I think we're
What
all
about your
managing,
name?
we're all heading businesses, and we have to do all of those things. Whether it's
Absolutely,
the
yes.
HR one side and dealing with our COVID response, or giving presentations to investors and the managing the balance sheet.
But I think,
So,
Priya,
Nina, what
that's
do
why
you?
women are great multitaskers.
Yeah.
Yes,
We can
absolutely.
juggle so many balls at one time, and I think that's our biggest strength.
Yeah.
And I also
And
want
in
to add
most
to the
everything.
same question, Priya, since you spoke about, the people working with you, the workforce. What do you do as women to create a woman-friendly kind of environment? Do you focus more on hiring women? I've spoken to all your teams in the last few days. You've got fabulous women working with you. I mean, I've spoken to Anita's team, I've spoken to Nina's team, Priya's team, super strong women. So, what do you do as leaders to encourage women in your workspaces?
So I think it depends on the company and depends on the workspace. But I think the really the larger question, and hospitality has always had women in different roles, but always in the more traditional roles of, human resources and PR communications, housekeeping. You may have someone entry level, but people don't necessarily in middle management up, and there are not enough of numbers of women. Okay, so that's the hospitality thing, and partially because it's these long hours and other things that we have to keep in mind. But I think, I do a lot of work on women's rights and women's empowerment, and with a couple of NGOs, and been very involved in the field for the past 15 years. I think the real issue for India and women working in India is the fact that it's a declining percentage. Number one. Number two, COVID has reduced the number of women in the workplace. And these are not women just setting up businesses. It's also, like entrepreneurs. It's actually women working at all levels of companies. And the third big thing is sexual harassment and abuse of and violence against women in the workplace. And I think that's something, if you see, whether it's not just domestic violence, it's just harassment at the workplace, it's a huge, huge issue. And the reason why women do not actually opt out quietly from the workplace and maybe possibly don't join. So whether it's the organized or the semi-organized, and that's something that as women leaders is something that we should try to address much more, because it's this violence against women which prevents more women from joining the workforce. It's a huge issue. And then if you go into corporate boards and representation at higher levels, then there are other issues there. But, in that, but I think violence against women of all types is the biggest barrier to women joining the workforce.
True. But I'm so glad we're having these conversations, because I think conversations like this create awareness, create an agenda to do things right. So I'm so glad we're speaking today on it. Meena, what are your views?
I think having women in my team is great, and we have many, many women at all levels. I think it's also being part of the fashion industry.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay.
I think, Dia, in my case, some of the most powerful roles in the company today are all by women, and all women who joined the company 14, 15 years ago as complete freshers, who with their sheer hard work and brilliance have reached the top, and we've given them the platform too. And most of the key positions today are by women, and they've risen it out of sheer merit.
Fantastic.
That's fantastic, yeah.
So, when the lockdown happened, suddenly hotels shut and restaurants shut, shops shut. So everybody had to basically move into the online digital platform. So how have you adapted to the digital platform, Anita? How has it been for you? Let's start with that.
Dia, we always had a website, and we
True.
just responded. We just, put in, took some of the team members who were at the stores and trained them to handle inquiries on websites. So it's just being agile. We reacted to the way the customer wanted us to now start communicating with her. So whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's email, whether it's ordering on the site, we just responded to how the consumer wanted it to be convenient for her. Home deliveries.
Okay.
So we did all that to make life easy for her.
Yeah, because it's such a touch and feel kind of industry with clothes, and especially wedding lehengas. You want to feel the craftsmanship and you want to feel everything. I'm sure it must be a little testy for the brides too, right?
We've risen to the occasion. Sometimes when a bride has had to choose, we've had the lehengas delivered to her house, allowed her to choose, allowed her to try it on in the comfort of her home, sent a driver to pick it up the next day. We've done I love my customer.
Fantastic.
And I will do whatever it takes to ultimately.
And you put pockets in all your lehengas too, right?
Sorry?
I said you put pockets in all your lehengas too for the bride.
Oh yes, right from the beginning.
That's fantastic.
That's a great idea.
Great idea. So Priya, how have you innovated with the digital space?
So I touched on it a bit, and actually it was, hotels, you have to experience a hotel in its physicality.
Absolutely.
To use the spaces and everything else. So, but the whole idea is in especially in the last April, how do you take the hotel and change that experience and let the customer experience the hotel in their own home? So of course, food delivery and everything is one. But what our chefs and our bar people started doing was to take the bar experience into people's homes and set up kind of a bar there, or you had a chef on call who came and did, small events, even those, 20 people events and or whatever was kind of allowed by the various states. So, how do you take that experience out? And then we did a whole series of kind of music events, which is available, I think, on Spotify or SoundCloud now, where
Okay,
all the
lovely.
bars went and had a series of about, I don't know, some 20, 25 performances by different DJs. So every week there was something happening. So you had to take that and, engage with people in a different manner to keep the thing and actually constantly keep a communication, whether digital or physical. Well, not physical, but through a call.
Yeah.
So even if you had inquiries for a banquet hall, you could then do video walkthroughs of the spaces. So I think using technology and digital ways of communicating with customers became really important and has taught us all of new ways of doing
True.
communicating. I mean, new ways of being in these, panels across the country. This would have would have been more torturous if it was not for Zoom or whatever we're using, StreamYard or something. So it's taught us all about new ways of doing business and new ways of communicating. And of course, digital is great, but I think we all can't wait for the physical. We're all waiting for that.
Absolutely.
And that's a very important part in all three of our businesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, that's why I asked. Meena, what about, are you okay? You were coughing? You're fine, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know. So I think pre-COVID, we were only about 17% was our e-commerce. But then Jan, Feb, March this year, when things were normal in retail, in our industry, absolutely normal. So we were like about, 40%, 60% was offline and online. So it was great that, this pushed us to do all the things that we weren't earlier doing. We were never focusing because, I was still from good old retail, large format store, your own stores. But I think this has taught us, and at a time like this, when there was so much cash crunch, we built the team stronger for e-com because we know it's going to just boom, boom, and there's no end to what you can do. Building a new website, all the stuff that we never did, it's just pushed us into that, and it's been a great learning. Social media, I'm doing my own social media, just learning how to market there, so many interesting things. So enjoying it.
Lovely. So I'm going to ask you some quick fun questions to show our members that you superwomen are human too, right? Because we have to see the human side of each one of you. So since Anita is in fashion, I'm going to ask Priya, what is your favorite fabric?
Favorite fabric?
Fabric, yes.
Linen.
All three of you. Your favorite.
You're
linen,
asking Anita,
okay?
you're asking... Okay.
All three of you. For all three of you. What is your favorite fabric?
I mean, I think the super fine cotton. I think if you live in India, I think when you see that super fine malmal, which is so soft, which is just like falls. And I think it's so versatile. It is such a quintessential Indian fabric in any case.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lovely.
me too. Just cotton. Beautiful
cotton?
cotton.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful.
And since we have a hotelier with us, what is your favorite travel or hotel destination? Anita?
So Anita didn't answer, and Anita didn't answer the
She
fabric
did. She
question.
said linen. She said
I
linen.
said linen.
Oh, linen. Okay, linen.
But
Okay.
super soft linen.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear. Yeah.
So what is
My
your favorite travel or
destination
hotel
is Jaipur.
destination?
Just Jaipur.
Jaipur. Yes.
Rajasthan, actually anywhere in Rajasthan.
So what about you, Priya?
Well, I love traveling and happy to travel, but my happy destination in India is Goa.
Goa. Lovely. And Meena, what about you?
So mine is in the mountains, Gangotri, Gaumukh. It's just being up in the north is beautiful. All those places, chotu jagas.
I think you've even been to the hill stations a couple of weeks back. I think you were mentioning.
Yeah. I've been traveling all the weekends to different stores. Whichever store is open. Okay, right now, like Ludhiana is open, Raipur is open. I'm going to go this weekend.
Lovely.
I can't sit at home. I go.
Lovely. So what is the most useful bag accessory, Anita? If we had to tell Meena what to design for us on a handbag, what is the one accessory you want her to add to a handbag?
An accessory to a handbag?
Yeah, like maybe a mobile holder or a card holder, or what do you think one could add to a
I think a
handbag?
water bottle holder. I've been told I have
Water
to keep it
bottle
in
holder.
water.
Pouch that
Like in school,
Lovely,
no, there should be a water bottle holder.
lovely. Priya, what about you?
I think more organization inside a bag. So I love bags that are, I mean, just need more, for all the things to
More
just be
compartments.
put in correct places. I was forever hunting and for things. So whether it's a water bottle holder or the mobile holder or the sweets that you want to keep in your bag, I want more
So
pockets.
Nina, we've done your R&D for you. You've got two suggestions now what you can add. What would you like to put in a handbag? Is it a favorite color that you have, or what is
No,
your take on that?
so we've done this recently. We've done a COVID pouch, but I don't use it
Oh,
so much for the
lovely.
mask. But I use it for my
Okay,
specs a lot. So it's really nice because
lovely.
you don't need to search for your specs inside the bag. You want them, and I don't like those dabba and then search for it. So maybe I
Correct,
can send this to
correct.
y'all. It's really, really nice.
Lovely, lovely.
And your
Very nice.
suggestions are
So
great.
I
We will
also,
implement.
yeah, yes. So I also want to ask you about your dream project. So I know, Anita, I read that you wanted to set up an animal shelter. How's that going?
I haven't set up an animal shelter, but we are supporting various animal shelters in Bombay. So my brother and me, we are both animal lovers, and then we started visiting a couple of them. There's an amazing one in Kalote, which is an hour away from here, and I just thought instead of setting up my own, it's better I support the ones that are already there, and I think
True,
they all need
true,
a lot of
true,
support. So
They do. My
true.
husband is very active in the set up a couple of animal shelters, so I must get the two of you to talk.
yes, I would love to, Priya.
Yeah, he's done quite a few of them.
So, so Priya, since as we're talking to you now, I want to know. I've read that you wanted to go skydiving with your son. How is that coming up? That dream of yours?
Me?
Yes, you said you want to go
I thought
skydiving. I've done my research and I've heard that
you've done some
you
research in some old article which I might have just read something.
caught you.
uh, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe that's an old one, but I'm sure at this stage I would go skydiving. But I think he might just say absolutely no. But you with
Okay.
teenagers, you can't push them. Um, so the question is, what is my project?
Your
Is that
dream,
what
yeah. What? No, what is the dream? Personal dream, just something that you want to do. Something maybe in lockdown, post lockdown, something that you wished you had done, that you're waiting for lockdown
Oh,
on a personal level.
the because of the lockdown, the travel bucket list has become, like a full swimming pool size. So I think I would love to just travel, and I think you not only do you get great ideas. It's just such a learning to when you travel, and whether you travel down the road 2 hours away or you're taking a flight and going to something more exotic. So I think that's what I would love to do and keep doing.
Lovely. And Nina, I've read about you that you want to set up a design studio in Paris overlooking the Eiffel Tower. How close are you to that dream of yours?
No. I just want, that we are there globally in all the stores, just like how Anita has manifested today in New York. And we also
True,
at
true.
Baggett wish to cater to the world and grow our economy. But on a personal front, I think adventure sports is what I really, really love to do when I travel. And I get scared to do it in India because they just drop you anywhere, I feel. But I think whether it's going up in the sky or going under the water, I think whenever I get time, that's really what I would like to devote time to.
Lovely. So my last question to each one of you is, Anita, who is that one woman who has inspired you, your mentor, that you'd like to talk about today?
My mom,
Your mom. How lovely is
her
that?
positivity, and she's had 6 kids, Dia, but she's just so amazing. And I have my youngest brother is mentally challenged, but she still today just is so amazing with the whole family. She's such a giver, and she's always positive, laughing, and I just want to be like her,
Oh, how
full of the
lovely is that?
positivity that she radiates 24/7.
I hope she's watching. She's going to be so proud. Priya, what about you?
My mother is watching, but despite the fact, I do think it's my mother who's the one who's made me who I am and given me wings and really, guided me in so many ways from when I was a child. So, um, it's kind of a 50 something years old relationship. And I think, Dia, you know her. So she's just a
And I
wonderful
love
person, and how she's handled all the adversities in her life and stayed cheerful, happy, and focused on us as a family, and despite all the things she's going through. So thank you, mommy.
we love you, Shane Auntie. So, Nina, what about you?
So for me, it's not only a woman, but it's also my husband, and he
Lovely.
has really taught me, visualization, and there's always a fearful thought that comes to you whenever we think more on the negative.
True.
Generally, that's our mind, but how you can reframe that and create what you want, and that's actually exactly what my mom used to teach me when I was a kid. She used to always tell me, Radha Krishna is there. Krishna is taking care of you.
Yeah.
And she used to make me really visualize that. Like when I used to go, I remember I used to take a taxi with my cartons. I'm going to art gallery and I'm going to have a sale over there. And I used to visualize that, oh, the sale is going so well. I'm getting so much money. The drawer is full. There are a lot of customers. And I used to see Lord Krishna, there with me. And I think till
Okay,
today,
lovely.
that has
Lovely.
always held me, like through it all.
True. Lovely. I have done so many sessions on this online platform in my term as president, and today is my last session. And this is one question I do ask almost every speaker I've had. And it's so interesting. The universal answer has always been my mother. Everybody has said that, including me.
Interesting.
So I think it's really interesting. And yet I think we have so much more that we can do for women empowerment in our country. So I think we all really need to work together to make sure that happens. And like Priya said, change those conversations. So it's very, very
Yeah, I have
important.
them.
I'm going to ask
Mm.
Sumita Roy to join us on screen now.
Yes. Thanks for sharing your success stories and as role models, inspiring our members. Thank you for giving your time. Rousing applause for President Dia, an incredible president and a super moderator.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
to our
you. Thank you so
members,
much.
online viewers, and the media for support. Now, Dia will conclude the session. Will you?
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sumita. You took me
Thank
by
you.
surprise. Thank you so much. And thank you, Priya, Anita, and Neena. I truly believe that we as women are going to be the game changers in our country. And all three of you are the perfect examples of this and are such exceptional business leaders. As we've seen from your stories today, the road to success is a road that is going to remain under construction. So we do need to find the courage to soldier on as we lead our own businesses to a path of consolidation and growth in this disruptive world. And I do hope our conversations today have provided each and every one of you who has joined us the fuel and the passion to do just that. Interestingly, so many years back, when Walt Disney told his crew, he told them to first build the castle while constructing Disney World, knowing fully well that the vision of that completed castle would provide the motivation needed to continue work on the project. And I think all our speakers today have spoken about that, the importance of a vision. Because often when we fail in life with what we want to achieve, it's because our vision hasn't been strong enough. So please do have your own visions, dream big, stay focused, and stay inspired. And thank you so much once again, all of you. And we will see you soon on another webinar. Have a great evening ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks a
much,
lot.
Anita.
Thanks,
you.
Thank
Father.
you, Priya. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all.